Sentinels just pulled off the biggest upset in the history of their org, defeating the Titans of Valor in G2 on a very close BO3. They just qualified to Toronto with this game, knocking G2 to lowers, but the question remains, are they going to be good at Toronto, and how in the world were they able to beat G2? Was it a fluke, or are they actually for real? Let's go ahead and take a look here and see how they were able to beat the Titans of Valorant in G2. Thank you guys so much for 6K. Really quick, check if you're subscribed. I know some people think they are and they end up not being, and let's get into it. Now, G2 did thrifty Sentinels on the second round there with their kind of Stinger force up, so this is the first round. There's been gun v gun. G2 try and get Valorant inserted, but they're going to make a major round-losing mistake right here as they drone up mid. As you know, Jog is on the way lane. He didn't perform too well on that, and I'll give you my thoughts on that in more detail in a little bit. But right here, they're trying to trip this Vice Wall to create mid pressure and make Sentinels want to reclear the area. But did you catch it? Let's rewind real quick. He doesn't trip the Vice Wall. The Vice Wall doesn't go off. So John QT knows they cannot have gotten past this space, so then he rotates over to A. Now you're probably asking, well, yeah, that's bad, but how does that lose the round? Here, John is able to get the kill onto Jogamo. That first blood is so huge because it stalls out the execute. Now, this drone used to reclear shows Sen that G2 are still right there. Then Bang just does recon phantom bang things, getting 3 kills here to effectively end the round. It's really nice to see how kind of little mistakes like that, where you're just not tripping a wall, end up losing you a round. And Sen do a great job of capitalizing on G2's mistake. Now, G2 were undefeated with this comp with the Waylay on Ascent against other teams. They played against MIBR, NRG, and Furia, and not really any of them gave them a challenge. But something interesting to note is they didn't play around and against the Vice very well. This Vice wall up mid, I showed you how it lost in the previous round. It gave them a lot of problems when it gave all of the information to Sentinels that there was no mid pressure. For example, this round, the Leaf Vice Wall is set right here to make sure there's no aggression from B main, but Sen know they're not up mid. They only need to leave one person, Zekin, on B site, and they can go ahead over here to A. As Jog dies on the entry, now everything is stalled out for G2. There's no pressure on any other part of the map. It's held, all of this space, by one Vice Wall and one person, making it a 4v4 if G2 were to try and go onto the A-bomb site. They'd only played against one Vice, that being Furia, and again, it wasn't a great showing, but it was also Furia. So it's very interesting just to see that G2 weren't able to play around that. Obviously, the Waylay pick, I think Waylay personally is overrated. I've thought that since release. Waylay has been doing all right in this comp, but I would much rather see a Yoru or Jet, and I think would provide a lot more value. Jogamo died first a ton of times, as you can see in this round, and just generally was unable to find the same value he was against other teams. G2 are going to go ahead and save here, but they need to start working on pressure, because otherwise, you're just going to keep losing. But G2 obviously recognize this. They recognize that you need to be creating pressure on other parts of the map. So they're going to go ahead and try and go up mid here. Again, Jogamo going to be leading the pack, but pretty much everyone is over in this area. Leaf is doing the same Vice Wall to make sure that Sen don't want to aggress out of B main, and that he'll know if they do, he can try and get a kill. But now, here comes the issue with the Vice Wall. G2 can't trip it, and here's what I mean. Valen and Jogamo are both right here trying to trip out this wall and bait it out. Jog misses, and then finally, from the pizza cam, we see the wall go up. And if you'll notice, that forces Narrate to stay back here, meaning that if G2 decided to pivot, there would be less players on site. That's why you need to trip the wall. But the issue, and this is kind of a Waylay issue as well, Narrate able to hold this down. If you have decent aim and you're playing against a Waylay and you're a good tracker, Waylay isn't that scary. And again, at the pro level, you're going to have people who are very good at tracking, and it's just not very good to have an agent whose entire kit pretty much revolves around, I'm going to go brew, 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 and then I can dash back, and no space was gained from that, and I've gained nothing, and now my entire kit is out. Again, I really think that a Jet or Yoru would do them a lot better, and that they've just been getting away with the Waylay as kind of an off-meta pick, and also just beating up on bad teams. To be honest, 2 of their wins were against Furia and NRG respectively. Anyways, Sen won the round. Great job. Even though G2 were able to trip that Vice Wall, they made sure that they didn't get any value out of that. But in this round here, there is another issue that emerges. See, G2 know that they cannot survive if they keep doing these 5-man hits, but the second they try and send Valen on this lurk, Jogamo dies off rip. He's forced to kind of come back after the second one where a main happens because they need the numbers on the site execute. Now you're probably asking yourself, why isn't Leaf lurking? He's on the Vice, the more traditional role, and the answer is, well, complicated. It's one of two things. As he dies here, he did have his ult on him, but he also had his Razor Vines they could have been trying to use on site to cut off angles, maybe throw them, let's say, where you would throw your smokes here and here. But once he dies, this execute is pretty much doomed. Not only do you only have 3 players, but you don't have anyone to really force that space away from Sentinels, so Zekken is able to just pretty much do whatever he wants on site, ends up getting a 3rd kill onto Valen because Valen didn't clear him, and then 2v3 retake that could have actually gone well for them. Trent here whiffs a little bit, but that's okay because you have a strong position here from Jonah P. If Jonah P is able to kill Neri here, I think they win the round because then Sen have to be worried about re-clearing Jonah P and on site trying to get rid of Trent. But doesn't happen, and they do end up losing the round here. Trent gives a good go of it. Again, he's always so good in these post-plant scenarios, but unable to really win it out. 4-6 is not the score. It's actually 6-2, keeping you on your toes. Zekken and Sentinels do the same dash down KO blind play that's been in the game for the past 5 years and will be in the game for 50 more. But he's not the one to get the first blood. It actually ends up being bang onto Jogamo. And again, Jog has been dying so many times. First, he died 7 times. First death 7 times in a game is insane. That means about 30% of the time, 30% of the rounds, he is going to be the first dead. It's very hard to win a game like that. In G2, we're obviously unable to do that. But now it's a 4v5. And a big issue for G2 is they don't know that the Vice wall is over with Zelsis. They think it's up mid because it's always been up mid. So now they think that Sentinels have the information that mid is clear and don't have to dedicate a person like they do. So they're worried about that as well, thinking that they need to go do something there. They end up trying to go A and get in a tree, but get honestly just completely stopped by the Molly right here and then the Teo utility, forced out, and Leaf for the first time this game is going to go on a little bit of a lurk here. Jonah P is going to go behind him, but you'll notice they think this wall is here, and I can prove it to you right here. They're about to go here, they blind, and they walk backwards. The reason they walk backwards there is because they think that wall is there. They don't want to accidentally trip it. Leaf then realizes, oh, the wall isn't here. Zekken gets the kill, and Zelsis, he's known for ripping it, right? Rips that ult very, very well to make it 7-2, Sentinels on top. Leaf is on a lurk here, and G2 smoke mid to try and force some sort of re-clear from Sentinels. Leaf has this wall back here, lets them know if they come out of B main. He's trying to be in kind of a sneaky position with Jonah, force them into him to get some kills. It just doesn't happen. G2 end up going through tree though, and good for Jogamo, he's finally able to find some utility value out of that Waylay kit and isn't the first death. He does dash in, boom, but then forced to refract out after Narrate's right here with him being full blind, but it doesn't even matter because Narrate is able to get that kill onto Valen. He does die and get traded out because he didn't expect Trent to also be main, and you're in a 3v3 situation. Now, if you could win this would be massive. Obviously, you're on offensive ascent, which you're not going to ever do well on, but 9-2, or what it ended up being 10-2, is too much to really come back from. It comes down to, the reason G2 lose this is Jogamo is 1 HP and expected to do everything. You're playing off Trent Salvo's main, but Leaf is also there, which means Jogamo on 1 HP needs to be watching both Heaven and the door right here. He's able to get 1 onto John, but after that, you can't expect him to do much of anything. He ends up trying to hold Heaven and failing, as you can see here, gets the kill onto John QT and then dies Heaven as Zekken able to kill Leaf. And now Trent, he's been so good in the clutch, right? But unable to ultimately win this one out. Does get the kill on Zelsis, but again, Zekken literally just crouches, throws off the crosshair, plays with a little bit, and yeah, a great way to kill Trent right there. And at this point, Sen are doing synchronized celebrations, just like my girlfriend tells me, telling G2 to wrap it up. On this pistol round, Sen go ahead and exploit mid, because G2 don't have the same wall that Sen used. I personally think that that wall should be the default wall, kind of how you would use the KJ alarm bot on the older style of Valorant, but they can take all this space mid. You can see they're being close. They're being just taking small steps because they think the wall is here, but it's not. It's over on B. Now, once they recognize that this space is pretty much free, again, G2 were playing like they had that wall. No one back mid, no one market. They were playing like the wall was up. To be quite honest with you, even when it wasn't, the drone is forced to be used to re-clear the space, but it doesn't see Zelsis, as evidenced by Trent running away. Now, Sen try and pivot towards A so Zelsis can get a pick or two and cut off rotations, but they quickly just leave once those salvos come online. Zelsis, though, is still in this position, and I personally thought that G2 would be a lot more aware of the fact they gave up this space than they did. I said it on stream, I co-stream MVVCT America's Game 2N, that surely Trent is aware that he's given up this space. He was not aware that they given up the space, to be quite honest with you. Now, Jonah P tries his best with that flash, but it ends up in a 2v2 situation. Leaf kills Nary, but again, bang, such a great Ascent player, able to get that kill with the right click, and now 1v1 scenario, him versus Leaf, and he is going to win it out right here. Now, Sen do get thrifty the next round, but G2 have the biggest fake comeback of all time. However, I don't have time to show that to you because it pisses me off, to be quite honest with you. Wasted 30 minutes of my life to end on a 13-11. So let's go ahead and take a look at the last round here, as Bang, of course, gets the kill onto Leaf right here. Right here. Right here. Right here. Right here. Sentinels go on a bit of a default here on the last round. Bang just got an incredible 4K to save this from what would have been a very, very, very embarrassing comeback if G2 were able to get it. But Jogamo has done a lot better on defense, got the op in his hands. He's going to get one of the weirdest kills I've seen onto Nary. Here's what I mean. Nary gets kind of inserted in this tiny little area right down here, as you're going to see in a couple seconds. He gets there when Jogamo isn't looking. Then Jogamo sees a leg, goes as far as he can to that little butthole angle, and gets the kill onto Nary. At this point, the round should be pretty much over, but if that isn't enough of an advantage for G2, a 4v5 situation isn't enough, there's going to be even more. Bang smokes off mid here. The rest of Sen kind of regroup into it, and they're going to go ahead and try and take tree and then the A bomb site as you can see Zekken out in front, but he doesn't have a dash. He just kind of has to awkwardly shuffle in with the rest of the team, as you'll see right here, and they all just go together happily, arm in arm, hand in hand, until Valen rips John QT's hand from his body. 3v5 situation. There is no way Sen should be able to win this, but Zelsis takes a great timing through the smoke. Valen did not expect him to do that, and then a wonderful reposition. Again, this is what I would have done. As it's always said, if Lionzblade's going to do it, you've made the correct decision. Everyone says that. You gotta believe me, bro. But this reposition genuinely is round winning. Even if Zekken and Bang just go 1-for-1 on site and aren't able to shoot like they were. But Zekken kills Jonah P right there. Bang gets the kill, and then again, that positioning kills Jogamo, Trent in the 1v3, and G2 through a 5v3 situation. And you can tell Zelsis is a bit excited. He's somehow able to lift these guys off the ground. He does it like a very, I'm not really that strong, I'm just using my body weight way, because they only get a couple inches up. Pause. But, I mean, they seem pretty excited about this whole affair. In conclusion, I think Sentinels look pretty good. I think that G2 had definitely some mishaps and some mistakes. Should probably change their Ascent comp, but Sentinels definitely look like they could be a force to be reckoned with in Toronto. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.